Hello everyone, I am Surrender Reviews and I'm back, and I'm ready to look at some more Generation 1 Transformers. But before I get started, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. And if I can't convince you, perhaps this picture of my cats will convince you. And random fact about my cat society is that all government computers are required by law to have password as the password. But without further ado, let's get into this. So the first episode we're gonna look at is Five Faces of Darkness Part 3, which is basically a continuation of the previous video. But without further ado, let's get into this. So the episode starts out with Rodimus and crew, well, escaping from planet Quintessa exploding. And, well, their ship has now exploded, and they kind of are floating through space, and Rodimus just tells them to enjoy the ride. Meanwhile, with Galvatron and crew, well, they decide to attack a random outpost in the outer reaches of our solar system, and they do a pretty good job of that. But luckily, Wheelie and Blur end up escaping, but they are being followed by the Decepticons, so they're gonna try losing them at Jupiter. But unfortunately for Blur and Wheelie, well, they don't quite get away from Galvatron and crew, and they have to eject. And they end up falling into Jupiter, and Galvatron decides to throw caution to the wind to make sure that they are extra dead, actually proving that he is maybe slightly smarter than Megatron, but unfortunately his troops think he's kind of insane for, you know, creating a megastorm in Jupiter. Meanwhile, with the Quintessons, they end up realizing that they may be celebrating a bit too soon at the destruction of the Autobot Matrix, and realize that they maybe should probably side with the Decepticons, or at least ally the Decepticons. Meanwhile, with Rodimus and crew, well, they're in a bit of a sticky situation with a mobile trash compactor, and Wheelie and Blur actually managed to get away from Galvatron, and Galvatron just wants to be taken to Char so he can go rally the Decepticons. Meanwhile, with Rodimus and crew, well, they're currently having to fight a mobile trash compactor that ended up getting Springer and kind of put him into pieces, and now it's coming for Rodimus Prime. Meanwhile, with the Quintessons, they are trying to win over the Decepticons, and, well...
Decepticons are hungry, and thus highly susceptible to persuasion. Exercise caution. Feed them only enough to make them hungrier still. Decepticons! We come in peace.
We offer you Energon Cubes.
Please, make my death painless. We have not come to kill you. We have come to offer you a proposition.
Swindle, I think this is your department. First, see if we can trust him. Taste one of the Energon Cubes.
Very soon, they will be ours again.
Meanwhile, with Rodimus Prime, well, he manages to destroy the trash compactor, and the Quintessons managed to actually convince most of the Decepticons except for Blitzwing to join them. And, well, Blitzwing kind of has some suspicions with the Quintessons, but the Quintessons are basically going to go send the Decepticons to go murder Rodimus and crew. And Galvatron came just in time to see Blitzwing basically tell him that, yeah, the Decepticons decided that they have a new leader, which is the Quintessons, and Galvatron decides to go teach the Decepticons a lesson as to who's really in charge. Meanwhile, Blur and Wheelie are probably going to figure out life on Io is not exactly very friendly, and Rodimus and crew get attacked by the Quintessons and the Decepticons, and the episode ends with to be continued. And overall, I will say that Five Faces of Darkness Part 3 was kind of not that great to start with, at least in the first half, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I will say it definitely picked up in the second half. I mean, I really like how the Quintessons basically know that they don't really have the forces to destroy the Matrix, so they have to basically ally with the Decepticons, and how they give the Decepticons just enough energon to get them to fight and to get them on board with their plan, but not really enough to, you know, survive, so basically just keep the Decepticons loyal. And I really like how Rodimus Prime got to show some bravery that even impressed Cop. And yeah, I also really like how Galvatron is kinda shown to be a little unhinged, and overall I will say that this episode was pretty mid, if I'm being perfectly honest. Wasn't that great in the first half, but definitely got better in the second half. But without further ado, on to the next episode, which is Five Faces of Darkness Part 4, where we continue this entire marathon. But without further ado, let's get into this. So the episode starts out right where we left off, with Rodimus and crew being attacked by the Decepticons. But fortunately for Rodimus and crew, the Decepticons have really bad aim, and, well, Galvatron comes by and, does this here.
The cons learn the price of your disloyalty! Attack!
Attack who?
Everyone will pay! Galvatron, you have returned! Beg for your life!
Spare me, and I am yours to command!
They gave us Energon! They led us on this raid! What can you give us that they didn't? They? They? Who are they? Perhaps I should introduce...
You know, Galvatron, normally I would give you some flack for, attacking your own teammates like that, but, considering the fact they couldn't even hit the broadside of a barn if they were 2 feet away from it, I think you probably do need to give them a hard lesson in target practice. And, yeah, no wonder you go insane later in the series. Anyways, so Rodimus Prime manages to contact Wreck-Gar and tell him that he needs help on the planet Goo, which is actually the name of the planet that they are on. Meanwhile, with Blur and Wheelie, well, they get saved by this person here, but unfortunately they're too slow to get to the shuttle, and it gets destroyed, and, well, they kind of have to figure out if the radio still works for the shuttle. Meanwhile, with Galvatron, well, he ends up formally introducing himself in the most rude way possible to the Quintessons, and the Quintessons end up tricking Galvatron into thinking that there is in fact a Decepticon matrix of leadership. After he fails to destroy Rodimus and crew because they are saved by the Junkions, well, he ends up taking the Quintessons up on their offer, and the Junkions actually end up fixing Springer. Meanwhile, with Rodimus Prime, well, he short-circuits himself to go into the Matrix to find out a bit about the Quintessons, and from what he finds out about the Quintessons, well, they were once the rulers of Cybertron, and Cybertron was basically a factory world with the consumer goods and the military hardware, and they ended up exploiting and not being very nice rulers to the military hardware and the consumer goods. And the consumer goods and military hardware ended up just deciding to, not have the Quintessons so in charge anymore, and they successfully drove the Quintessons off of Cybertron. And there was peace. But unfortunately, the differences between the consumer goods and the military hardware, which eventually became the Autobots and Decepticons respectively, yeah, their differences were just too stark in terms of their end goals, and, well, the first Cybertronian War. And, well, the Autobots, not being able to beat the Decepticons in straight-up firepower, turned to transformation. And eventually the Decepticons learned that transformation might not be a bad idea. And, well, they're basically on equal footing, definitely not to sell more toys. And, well, the Decepticons ended up creating Megatron, and eventually the Autobots created Optimus Prime, and, well, we are here today. Okay, personally, I will say this origin story for the Autobots and Decepticons is really great, and I really like how, at first, the Autobots and Decepticons ended up just unifying under the common cause of just booting the Quintessons out of Cybertron. And I really like how their differences just ended up becoming so stark, with them both wanting different end goals, with the Autobots wanting peace and prosperity, whereas the Decepticons wanted military conquest. And I really like how basically the Autobots, realizing that they could not beat the Decepticons with straight up brute force, had to turn to more or less outsmarting the Decepticons. And another thing that I really like is how Megatron is not really the founder of the Decepticons, but he's really just their most recent leader. And overall, I really like this origin story for the Cybertronian and the Cybertronian Wars. Anyways, so the Decepticons are gonna do a two-pronged attack. One attack is going to be with Trypticon, where they are going to attack Autobot City on Earth, and the other attack is basically going to be a full frontal assault with other troops going to Cybertron, and, well, they end up knocking out Cybertron's power grid, and as it turns out, the Quintessons are going to betray the Decepticons, and, well, to be continued. And overall, I will say that the Five Faces of Darkness Part 4 is really good, and a really good second to last part, and a really good build up to the finale. I like how we get to learn more about the Quintessons and why they want to take back Cybertron, and why they feel like the Autobots and Decepticons are guilty, and how they're ultimately just tricking the Decepticons with their greed. And I really like how we get an origin for the Cybertronian Wars and how they happen. And I also really like how Galvatron is, really going insane. He might be more powerful than Megatron, but he's not really as stable as Megatron, and is willing to just attack his troops just pretty much because he can. And overall, I highly recommend this episode. Can't wait for the finale, but I think with that, that's gonna do it for today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.